My name's Jerad Romo. A lot of times when I tell people I live in Dallas and I have the last name Romo, there's something that comes up real quick. It's not going to happen much anymore. Dak Prescott ruined that for me. But they'll ask any relation to Tony. And so to make it even a little more complicated, I did play quarterback as well. I played at SMU. And I also truly did try out with the Cowboys. And I didn't make it. That's why I'm here speaking with you guys today. But me and my parents, just a real small group of people, believe that Jerry Jones picked the wrong Romo. But I'm the Super Bowl Romo. You're looking at me. Since I never got to prove that, I can keep saying it. But, I'm excited to be here. We're really happy to host. My current title here is Director of HR. I've been with school for this summer in June will be 11 years. And I started in sales back in 2007. And I've had 6 different jobs in the company. I started in sales for 4 years. Then I was a recruiter, then a recruiting manager, then a pre-owned or a new car manager, then a pre-owned manager, and then over the last 3 years I've been Director of HR. So I've got to see a lot of different things. I think attaching yourself to a business in that way that you can really look at the long-term vision is something that can benefit a lot of people. A lot of times people want to jump from job to job to job to job. I got to do that, 6 jobs, but with the same organization. So while I was able to do that, I'm able to build relationships and move up and establish a great network of respect and trust and things like that. I watched a video recently that I wanted to share today. This presentation is a lot for your personal development. And I think everyone will be able to take at least one thing from today and start applying it immediately. That to me is the idea of these meetings. It's not about what I can do, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. It's what can I take today, and I walk out these doors and I start doing it. And there was a guy named Sean Acor. Sean Acor is from Waco. He went to Harvard, and he's now speaking all over the country. He speaks about happiness. And he decided to study happiness at Harvard. And they said, Sean, why in the world would you study happiness at Harvard? Everyone there's got to be happy. And he said, they're the best students in the world. They're at one of the finest institutions. It's beautiful. And he said what happened, though, when he got to Harvard, he realized that people were not happy. He said they were for about a week or two. But he said these are people who always got good grades, and now they need better grades. They're out of grade school, now they need to get a better school. They got a good job, now they need to get a better job. And what he found is that most of the world looks at happiness as a destination. So they look at it as, when I get to this destination, I will then be happy. And he said, you know what happens though? So you work. You get to the destination and you look around for happiness, and guess what you do not find? You don't find happiness. He said, so guess what happens? He said, you just move the goalpost. So the goalpost for happiness is just moved. And you do it again, and you get there and you don't find it again. And he said, as he studied, he looked at it, you got to start internally. You have to find happiness yourself. And he said, actually, when you find happiness yourself, then your performance is actually significantly higher. And he boiled it down to a couple of things. He said, if you want to find happiness, here's how you find it. So here's one of the things you can start, taking notes of and start living. He said, you have 3 gratitudes a day. Every day you say 3 things, maybe even write them down that you're thankful for. Every day. 3 gratitudes a day, we can all do that. He said also you journal. You take your thoughts and you write them on paper. So he said you find happiness with 3 gratitudes a day in journaling. Then he said you work on meditation. You take some time to get away from the hustle and bustle and take some time to sit and think and relax. He said then you work on exercise. Exercise teaches your body that when you do great things, it does benefit you. And then you work on random acts of kindness. He said those 5 things, when you do those 5 things each and every day, 3 gratitudes, journaling, meditation, exercise, random acts of kindness, you find happiness. When you find happiness, you perform at a higher level. You do that with your family, you do that at work, you do that in your community, you do that with your church. And so I recommend as you leave here that you start doing those things. There's another thing that we live by here, and it's an acronym. It's CPA. CPA, not Certified Public Accountant, but CPA. And what CPA is, if you take your thumb every day and you put it in the air, and then you point it right here at your chest, CPA starts with I am responsible. I am responsible. Nobody else. This is me. And CPA stands for this: everything in your life you are responsible for. And it says you either created it, that's the C, you promoted it by encouraging others to do those things, or you allow it to happen. So everything in your life you are actually responsible for. I either create it, I promote it, or I allow it to happen. So when you start taking that approach, what goes away is pointing fingers. That's their fault. That's their fault. I can't control that. All it's saying is, yeah, you can. Let's find happiness ourselves by doing those 5 things. And let's start with right here. Say, it starts with me. I'm responsible for everything that's going on in my life. Now, are there things that happen, unfortunate circumstances? Sure. Absolutely. And when those things happen, it's about how you respond to them. Because some of the things, the events in your life, you truly cannot control. But one thing you can is how you respond. And when you respond, the outcome will be a reflection of your response to that. So I can't control the events, I can control my response, therefore I can control the outcome. So I want to transition. I'll tell you the Sewell story and I'll kind of walk through. We've been in business 107 years. So we've seen a lot. From the Model T all the way to where we are today, the Great Depression, different recessions, the economies that are failing, things of that sort. And we've been able to maintain a great business for that long, and that's hard to do. We've also transitioned 4 generations. If you study companies who have been around 100 years, there are very few. If you study companies that have transitioned to the 4th generation, there are very few. If you study people who have done both, there's even fewer. And we've been very lucky to do that, applying the principles that I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, I'll talk to you about them from a business perspective. But what I encourage you to do is say, well, if they can do this, then that means that I can. So I'll tell this whole story and kind of outline some of the underlying decisions that were made along the way that I think will be very helpful for you. So Sewell in 1911, we started in this hardware store right here. We actually started right in Arlington, Texas. And this was the first generation family business, hardware store and movie theater. And then second generation family business was Carl Sr., who's on that back wall right there. At 14 years old, he started building Model Ts out of this hardware store. Cars were really a fad. It was a novelty at the time. People thought the horse and buggy was going to win. They didn't think that the car would ever catch on because the horse and buggy had been so reliable for so long. But he believed this. He said, if you treat people like a guest in your home, regardless of the product or service you provide, people will come back. And so the foundation of our business is that, treating people like a guest in your home, providing hospitality. We really believe in hospitality that everybody has a sign around their neck. You guys all have a sign around your neck. I have one around mine too. And hospitality is about how you make somebody feel. So the sign around your neck that you're wearing today, it says this, says, make me feel special by. And there's a blank right there that you have filled in. And when you're a great provider of hospitality, it's like that font got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I could read it. Because I took an interest in each individual. I know them. I understand what makes them feel special. So treating people like a guest in your home and providing hospitality is the baseline for our business. Then there's a financial discipline that has to take place as well. So his father taught him this in 1911, and still today, 2018, we haven't quite figured it out yet as a country. And here's what his dad taught him. He said, if you have $3 to your name, son, here's what I'd like you to do. You spend one goes to taxes, and what do you think he told him to do with that third dollar? He told him to save it. Okay? Somebody in our lives somewhere, multiple people, have probably taught us that along the way. But then as it plays out in the world, what do most Americans do with that third dollar? They spend it. What do they also do with the fourth dollar, the one they don't even have? They borrow that, they spend that one too. Right? And so you think about it, Dave Ramsey will say this, he says 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 70% of Americans. What side of the statistic will you be on? And that's really a choice, right? He says 62% if there's an unexpected $1,000 emergency would have to borrow money or use a credit card. So even the 30% that do save, 62% of them have less than $1,000 in savings. I want you to think about that. His dad told him this, if you just treat people like a guest in your home, provide that hospitality, they'll come back, and then to make sure your business can sustain all the ups and downs, save one of every $3. When you do that, You'll serve your family, your community, your associates, your customers at a level that's unparalleled because most people are unwilling to do that. Most people live at their means and or above their means rather than always living below their means. So on we went, one relationship at a time, 18 years, and then we hit a stopping point for a second. It started the Great Depression, Black Friday, 1929. He had placed his money into 3 banks. All 3 banks crashed on the same day. And so the people who didn't save their money, you know what they were doing? They were pointing fingers at them saying, look at now. See, I have this nice watch, I got this nice house, I have boats, I have jewelry, I have all these things, and you have nothing. Basically saying you shouldn't have saved. And he said, I don't believe that. I think I have the right discipline. I don't think the Great Depression and Black Friday is going to happen again if anytime soon ever. He said, what I'm going to do is do the exact same thing. He said, I have a hunch that out in West Texas, where the oil business is, that people still like being treated like a guest in their home. So I know the business may not work in Arlington, but I think people like hospitality there too, so I'm going to move. And so he decided to move and continue to treat people like a guest in their home, saving one of every $3. And he rented the back of a Maytag store. And humble new beginnings, and he sold cars to roughnecks out on the oil rigs. And the roughnecks maybe couldn't afford to buy a car by themselves, but the group of 4 could. And so he would drive the car out there and have somebody follow him. He'd say, hey, if I sell you this car, here's what I can guarantee you. It'll provide you transportation to town. It'll provide you a steak dinner, a drink, a shower. And while you're there, I bet you can get a date. And all these roughnecks are like, man, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. And so again, one relationship at a time, he continued to grow the business. He then saved his money, one of every $3, and bought a bigger store in Odessa. He bought the Ford store. He met his wife out in West Texas, so now he built his business back up. He met his wife. He's happy as can be. But he wants to move back to Dallas, and so his heart's kind of calling him to come back. So here he is back in Dallas. For the people in this room that are familiar with this location, this area, Preston Road and Mockingbird. On the northeast corner today sits a Wells Fargo bank. That's where this picture was taken right here. This was Sewell Village Cadillac. And we love this picture because one of the things you have to know about life is if you want to be successful, it's a constant journey of learning. The second you stop learning is the second your competition flies past you. And so you think about that. Are you willing to continue to learn? And so we love the illustration here. This is Carl Jr. Carl Jr. is the one who wrote this book right here. He's our current president and CEO. He's now 74 years old today. That's him right there, okay? This is his dad, Carl Sr., who's on the wall. He was 14 in 1911, the one who started the business. But here they are under the hood of a car, learning about the product, learning how to serve people. Mr. Sewell, Carl Jr., was real apprehensive about this business, just like I was, and probably most of the people in the room would say, I certainly did not go to college to sell cars, right? And he told his dad that, and his dad said, son, that's fine. If you don't want to go in this business, not a big deal. But I will always teach you, because the things about inventory management, negotiation, customer service, marketing, all those type things, he said, those exist in every business. So I'll teach you through the framework of the automotive business. If you don't want to apply it here, fantastic. So on they went to keep on learning. You think about this over here, what our company decided. There's Cadillac, right? Then you look at this car right here. This car's not a Cadillac. So you say, Jerad, why in the world would you have this Cadillac deal? And they're learning about a car that has nothing to do with what they're selling. The reason for that is we made a decision. We said we want to have an all-encompassing approach. If someone has automotive needs, we want them to think of Sewell and ask us for help. Think about that from a business owner's perspective. You sell a product. Someone brings in a product you don't sell, and they say, I have a problem with this, help me. What do most business owners tell them? Can't help you, sorry, go away. Because of pride and ego as well, you buy a product that they do sell, but you chose to buy it from the competition. Now you come to them for help. What do those business owners oftentimes say? You didn't buy it from us, go to the other place, right? But every time you tell somebody to go away, what's likely to happen?
Stay away.
They stay away forever. So now your market starts diminishing. Okay, so as we set up the foundation for our business, treat people like a guest in your home, save one of every $3, have an all-encompassing approach to business to serve all people that express interest in your industry. All right, so Mr. Sewell decided that he was going to go to SMU. So he went and graduated from Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. Then he went to the Army Reserve. So he did serve in the military for 2 years. He came back, he was 27, and still uncertain if he wanted to do this. Fast forward to 28, he's still learning from his dad every day. His dad sells the Cadillac one day, like he did almost every day. And then that night in his sleep, he passed away. And so now, think about our business here. Here's Carl Jr., Mr. Sewell, he's 28. Mourning the death of his father, and overnight now he's currently president and CEO of a business he's uncertain about. And so he's backpedaling. All these are associates in the room looking at him saying, what are we going to do now? He's backpedaling. He gets against a wall. He said, when you're put in a position like that, you find out how much you do not know. He said, I found out that real quickly. He said, but one thing I did know was I had a fiduciary responsibility to give back to all those who gave us so much. So I had to find a way. And he said, I had to ask myself this really simple question. I want you guys to ask yourself this question. The question is, how good do you want to be? And I really mean that. I mean some soul searching. How good do I want to be? Because if I say that I want to be the best, it will always take a sacrifice. It always has. And you know what that sacrifice is? It's one of your personal time. One of your personal time. And most people are unwilling to do it. So if you answer that question and say, I truly want to be the best, then you are committing to sacrifice your time. If you don't want to do that, then you've accepted that you want to be average. So where do you want to be? So now he's decided, I want to be the best. At that time in our company history, we were like number 3 in the Metroplex in sales for Cadillac. Currently, over the last couple of years, we've been number 1 in the country in Cadillac sales, the number 1 dealership in the country. There are over 900 of them. So when we say we want to be the best, we really, really mean it. So you want to be the best, we know that you have to learn. So if you want to be the best, you're going to go learn from people who are the best, right? I mean, that's pretty simple. Anybody in here went to University of Texas? Anybody at all? We got a couple. So University of Texas, so they did a great study. They did a great study 50, 60 years ago. They've been on a drought since, but 50, 60 years ago, they're studying the top business professionals in the state of Texas. Okay, you think about that. There are some people that are incredibly successful here in this state. They're looking for similarities. How in the world do these people become successful? They thought that they probably grew up affluent. They must have went to private school. Their parents must have owned a business. They were born in a certain year, the economy boomed, and they just rode the wave. They joined an industry, and the industry boomed, and they just rode the wave. Those were their assumptions as they started interviewing all these people. They go out and do it. They get all their data. They put it on a nice sheet, looking for consistency, looking for patterns. Very disappointed they didn't find any of those things. None of those things were true. Okay? One thing they found that was unexpected. I think that's a big part of this organization. They found every person had someone they can call by name that helped them get from where they were to where they wanted to be. And guess what they referred to that person as? Their mentor. And they said, if it wasn't for this mentor, I don't think I would have ever made it. If it wasn't for this mentor, I don't think I would have ever made it. So now if you're committed to be the best and you know that it says everyone who's the best has a mentor, your next step in your journey to be great would be what? Go find a mentor, right? That's part of what we're doing today, but I want to be clear about this. Mr. Sewell has some expectations of a mentor. He says this, he says it's a lot like dating. So if you try to date an average person or below average person, you say, hey, will you go out on a date with me? Oftentimes they'll say yes very quickly. He said that does not mean they're the right person. He said, but as soon as you try to shoot for the stars, you're dating, you're trying to date someone out of your league, the people your friends will laugh at you about. He said, oftentimes the answer you get there is no. He said, but then you look internally and say, how come this person doesn't see me in the line I want them to? How can I improve my life? How do I make my life better? So that when I ask them, they'll say yes. He said, very similar approach to a mentor. Don't just get an average mentor. Shoot for the stars. So Mr. Sewell decided to shoot for the stars. He called a guy named Stanley Marcus. Probably heard of him, founder of Neiman Marcus, worked for a long time. At this point, he was 70. He had sold his company. The company went public. He sold it. And he was in consulting at the time. And Mr. Sewell called Neiman Marcus. I think we have a shared customer. We can probably learn a lot from each other. I'm sure you can teach me more than I can teach you, but I think this would be a great partnership. Well, Mr. Marcus was really nice and genuine. He said this. He said, son, you can't afford me. That's where he started. That makes you feel real special, right? And Mr. Sewell said, you know, my dad taught me in negotiation, someone says you can't afford something, there's a price where you can. And he said, I responded to Mr. Marcus, said, Mr. Marcus, you've been so successful, I probably can't afford you. But I can't afford one lunch. Can we just go to lunch once and see what happens? Mr. Marcus appreciated that, and he loved his tenacity, perseverance, and he said, yes, we'll go to lunch once, and then we'll see after that. As the story plays out, once a month for the next 26 years until Mr. Marcus passed away at 96, Mr. Sewell and him met up. And Mr. Sewell today, never ever will he say there's one thing that helped us be so successful. But you will get to the point where he'll say one of the most influential relationships I ever had that helped me get from where I was to where I wanted to be was the one with Mr. Marcus. So I want you to think about that. Here's how the story of Sewell played out. From one store, ranked number 3 in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, we now have 2,800 associates. We now have 17 locations. So we have 11 here in Dallas-Fort Worth. We have 5 in Houston. We have 1 in San Antonio. I want to talk to you about Houston real quick. Remember I said we saved one of every $3, right? 2008, 2009, what was the state of the economy at that point? It was awful, right? It was terrible. Well, because Sewell was so disciplined for, at that point, I guess it's 97, 98 years of saving one of every $3 living beneath their means. You know what we did in 2009? We went and entered into a market we had never been in, Houston, Texas. We bought an Infinity store that was failing. They were going out of business. They were scared to death. And they said they're done. We can't do it anymore. We bought that store. Then we bought the Audi store right next door. Then we bought the Cadillac store on I-10 in Derry Ashford. Then Audi awarded us a brand new store in Sugar Land that we built from the ground up. Then Mercedes-Benz awarded us a new store in Katy that we built from the ground up. So 2009, because we saved one of every $3, we enter a market. Today we have over 650 associates there and 5 stores in a market that we've never been in. So I want you to think about it. It's not by luck and by chance that that worked out. It's by preparation and by discipline. So as you go through your story, I want you to think about that. Will I treat people like a guest in our home? Will I save one of every $3? Will I have an all-encompassing approach to business, serving everybody that expresses interest in my industry? Will I ask myself the question every day, how good do I want to be, knowing it takes a sacrifice of time, and decide I truly want to be the best? Then, knowing the best, I'll have an incredible mentor. Will I commit to finding one? And by doing that, it also means, will I change the way that I appear to the world? That might be in dress, that might be in language, that might be in presentation, that might be communication, that might be any of those things. Because those great mentors, they're not going to want to work with you if you don't do that. They're going to go look around and say, is this person real? Do they really want what they say? They'll check some of your references. And if any of those references say, no, that's really not how they live their life, they're probably not interested in you. So are you going to be consistent? Will you do those things? I think you need to ask yourself those questions as you go forward. And so this here, remembering here that to be the best does take a sacrifice of your personal time. How much are you really, really willing to give? Okay. I want to talk about customer service here because I think every business at some point is in customer service. If you don't sell a product, there is no business. Even if you're on the service side of that business, if it wasn't sold, you don't have business to serve. Okay? We think here that people want no defects. You can't mess up. No mistakes. Even when you go buy a Dr. Pepper from the convenience store, if that can's all beat up and has glue and dirt on it, guess what you're going to do? You're going to put it back and buy something else. Right? People want no defects in every business. People want timeliness. The 21st century time is the currency. Okay? If you don't respect their time, they're out of here. They don't want to wait. And people want to work with people who care about them. That's that hospitality sign. Are you willing to invest in an individual and find out what makes them feel special and do it? Are you willing to do that, or are you always looking at what's important to me? Or are you looking at how can I help others? How does that outwork others? I want you to think about the leadership model for you as you start going forward in your life too and making yourself better each day. Everybody has a vision. But you really craft your vision. What is it? Everybody has a vision. And you know what? If you go around a whole room full of people all over the world, no matter what role they're in the company or what they're doing, all over the world, people say they want to be the best. Everywhere you go. If you start a new job and you say, what do you want to be known for a year from now? You know what they're going to say? We want to be known as the best. So then why doesn't that happen everywhere? Why does that? Where's the breakdown? So you have a vision and you give your commitment. What's my commitment? What am I willing to do? What am I willing to sacrifice? I initiate what it takes to do those great things and I start moving forward. Okay? And then I focus on those things every single day. So as you start taking the strength finder assessment, I learned my top 5 strengths. How do I flex those muscles every single day? Not sometimes. What happens when you stop working out and exercising for a long time? It starts deteriorating pretty quickly. It deteriorates a lot faster than it builds. Okay? No different than this. Am I willing to flex those muscles every single day? And then you think about this. On the focus part, though, here's where the breakdown happens. You know why? Because people's egos start getting in the way. As soon as they reach a failure, you know what they do? They start making these excuses. Reasons and excuses for why it did not happen. And as soon as you start making excuses, you just compromise your entire vision. Your vision is over because you've accepted failing. And that's where the breakdown happens. When I focus on it every day, am I going to provide excuses or am I going to say, you know what, yes, I failed, here's why, and it's unacceptable, I'm moving forward. Because failures are going to happen. But then it's about how do I respond. We talked about the events I can't control, but how do I respond? I'm in control of my response. Everything in my life that I created, I promote it, or I allow it to happen. I want you to think about this as you start going forward. What is your vision? What's your commitment? What does it take to get there? And never start making reasons or excuses on why it didn't work. Just keep the focus. Keep the focus. Keep persevering. Be relentless. Okay? And you can make it where you want to go. Excuses are made to protect a person or a person's ego. That's the only reason. I'm trying to protect my partner here on the side, so I'm going to give every reason on why we failed. I'm trying to protect my own ego, so I'm going to say, here's why, and I'll justify it. Well, we had a storm, there's a lot of ice on the road, this, that, and the other. It's just an excuse. Our commitment was to be the very best. How are we going to get there? We think about that each and every day. We keep moving forward. It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a sprint to the top. It's a lifetime journey of learning. I want you to think about reading. Mr. Sewell wrote this book right here called Customer for Life. It actually has sold over 1 million copies. It was actually the best business book of the year, believe it or not. It's outstanding. It's wonderful. If you're looking for books to read, this would be a recommendation. I have hundreds of others that I can recommend for you too. And I'll tell you this, for me, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've really started reading. Before that, I didn't read much. I wish I didn't have to say that, but it's true. You know, I was a football player and I wanted to be cool, and reading in the locker room wasn't cool. And so I didn't read a lot. But I started visiting with people who were very successful, and over and over and over and over, they said they read. Over and over. And I made every excuse, think about that last slide, on why I can't. You know, I'm married, I have 3 kids, I work a lot, I do this, I do that, I exercise, all these reasons, but all they were at the end of the day were excuses to try to protect my ego on why I couldn't do it. But then I had a change of perspective. Somebody asked me this question. They said, if I asked you to read 6 300-page books this year, how would you feel about that? That sounds pretty miserable. I haven't read one in a long time. 6 of them sounds like way too much. So then they asked me a question. They said, Jerad, I want to ask you this. Can you read 10 pages per day? Well, I'm not the fastest reader in the world, but that doesn't sound that hard. 10 pages, I got that. They said, so you're committed? Yeah, I think so. I got that. I'm in. Well, let me do this here for you then. How many days are in a month? I said, well, typically about 30. They said, okay, so if you read 10 pages a day, every day for 1 month, how many books would, 300-page books would you read in 1 month? I I said, man, I think I know where you're going here, but I guess that would be one. I said, how many months are in a year? There are 12. I said, so if you just read 10 pages a day, you could actually read 12 300-page books when you said it would be miserable to read 6. And that changed my perspective. Over the last 5 or 6 years, 10 pages a day. Now, I fail sometimes. I have to admit that. But even if I failed every other day, I would slide in easily to 6, which I said was impossible. That's if I failed every other day, which I'm not doing. 10-page-a-day discipline. When you think about that, then how can your perspective change? How do you teach others? How do you pass on information? Well, you have a wealth of knowledge by that discipline. One discipline. 10 pages per day, which is not that hard. And all of a sudden now you're flying past your peers reading 12 300-page books annually. And then some people are going to like it so much they'll start reading even more than that. It's unbelievable. Just like exercise, it starts getting addicting. You start saying, I love this, I love doing this, even more than watching The Bachelor. You can't believe that, right? So people will start, all of a sudden, all these things you used to think you loved, they're gone. And you start loving this. So I really want you to think about that. If you are committed to be the best do read, the best learn every day, gain perspective, the best teach. Are you willing to do it 10 pages a day? 12 300-page books you read at the end of the day. I want to talk about the gift that each and every one of you have. I want you to think about this. All of us have it. It's present. The gift of fire. Fire, when used incorrectly, is really, really dangerous. It can hurt people. It can mow down properties and burn things. It can be destructive. It can destroy things. But fire, when harnessed correctly, can be the best gift that you ever have. So I want you to think about how you use your fire. One of the ways you use fire, many ways. One's as a source of light. Okay? Just like the Statue of Liberty, it's a source of light. And as you use it as a source of light, you use it for teaching. So when people start following you and you have that source of light, you're hiking up a mountain, you're the leader, you start showing them, you say, I've fallen right here before, and you shine your light there and you say, don't do that. Hey, right here, this is a really tough spot. Follow me, I'll show you the way. So as you have your source of light, you start teaching people. You start showing people. You shine it on areas that may be problems and teach them not to fall into those same things that you've fallen into. You use your fire for warmth. Everybody needs warmth sometimes. And warmth is represented oftentimes in the form of a hug. So use it for warmth for others. When others need help, you go hug them. You help them feel good. You show them that you care. You show them that you're here for them. You use fire for community. You build a campfire. And you bring people around and you get to learn from each other. You get to know them at a deeper level. One thing about a campfire, though, if you find yourself around a campfire often with a small group, you're excluding way too many people. So campfires should only be very rarely, not all the time. If you're just with a small group, you can't really teach others. The small group is good, but keep bringing in other people as well so that you can pay it forward. So then every once in a while, campfire is too small, so you build a bonfire. Bonfires, big traditions, family values. You bring in a lot of people to learn this is the way that we do things, and you use your fire for that. You use the fire in your belly every day to fuel you to move forward, knowing that that fire can be blown out. And when that flame is blown out, it may be really tough to get it going again. So what are your daily disciplines to harness that fire right there in your belly? When you're a leader, you use it also sometimes when someone's not performing the way they're supposed to. You take your fire and you put it right under their butt. And you say, get moving. You're better than this. The expectations are way higher than you're performing right now. And you use your fire as a sense of motivation. So I want you to think about that as you step out of these doors today. How do you use your fire? The source of light as a teacher for warmth, campfire for community, bonfire for big traditions, fire in your belly pushing you to move forward, fire under someone's butt to motivate them to do things they never thought that they could do, pushing people way out of their comfort zone. The gift of fire is something we all have. When used properly, is the best gift that you can give anybody. And how are you using it? How are you making people better around you? think about the Chinese bamboo tree. Okay, this will be a story of her life as well. That's not about instant gratification. So you plant this little bamboo seed, okay? And bamboo needs lots of water and fertilizer, and you got to nurture the soil, and you got to work this stuff so that it can have a chance to grow. So you do this stuff relentlessly, every day. It's not flashy, it's not fancy, it's not sexy. Nobody's admiring what you're doing. Other people, since they don't see instant gratification, they run off at this time. They don't want to do this stuff. And so you want to come show your friends after a year what you've been doing and how big this bamboo tree is. Guess how big it is after 1 year of work every day? It hasn't even showed up yet. Hasn't even reached over the ground. Nothing. So I keep going though because I know I'm on the right track. It's not about being flashy and fancy and sexy. It's about the disciplines. I'm building something bigger than myself. Something that needs an incredible foundation. So I fast forward, I do that for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Year 5, this bamboo hasn't even sprouted above the ground yet. And then you know what happens? In a 6-week period of time, it goes up 90 feet in the air. 6 weeks after 5 years. So a lot of people are looking for that shiny penny. They're looking for things that you get instant gratification. But what was happening here? As you were working relentlessly, what were you building? The foundation and the roots, right? They were going wide, they were going deep. Because why? When this thing shoots up 90 feet, if it doesn't have a great foundation, what happens? It just falls. There's a lot of books written on how to be successful, not many written on how to maintain success. And maintaining success means I have to build that incredible foundation so that I am sturdy, so that I don't get blown over and I don't fall. A lot of books that you read too talk about time on task as the differentiator if you want to be the best. But most people in this world aren't willing to sacrifice time. They talk about this magic number, 10,000 hours to be the best. If you look at that in a 40-hour work week, that's about 5 years. Are you willing to commit for 5 years to be the absolute best? Or are you only looking for what makes me satisfied today? You build a foundation, something bigger than yourself, where you use your source of fire to help others. I want you to think about that as we go forward. I'll leave you with a couple of things, but before we do that, and I'll open it up if anyone has any questions. I'll tell you my personal story real quick because I think it would be good for people to align with. My senior year at SMU, where I played quarterback, they invited me to speak to the Board of Trustees. And I'll tell you this, the Board of Trustees consists of millionaires and billionaires. I'm not that. Also, 15 years ago, I was scared to death to speak in front of people. And so when I got invited, the first thing I was going to do is say, no, I'm not doing this. And my wife, we just celebrated our 9-year anniversary, January 31st. We were dating 4.5 years before that, so we were dating at the time in college. And she said, Jerad, you're going to speak to them. I said, Ashley, no, I'm not. And she said, yes, you are. And I said, yes, ma'am, I'll do it. Okay, that's fine, I'll do it. So I wrote a speech about my life. I started back in Tehachapi, California, when I was 13 years old. My parents taught me if you want something in life, you have to work for it. So I started mowing lawns. I started framing houses. I started pouring concrete. I started making pizzas. I started waiting tables. I worked in the grape field with the migrant workers driving forklifts, forklifting the pallet of grapes and putting it in a freezer and putting it on a truck. I worked in the carrot fields with migrant workers 60 hours a week, the entire summer, Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. out there in the desert, hotter than heat. All these jobs I wasn't really proud of, and I wondered why I had to do those and my friends didn't. And I still don't know that I have the answer yet. But I always had a dream. I wanted to play Division I sports. I thought it was really good. And so my senior year, 6,000 people, keep in mind, so it's a small town. I played football, basketball, and baseball, and I got MVP of every sport, so I'm feeling really good about myself. And I thought that would lead to Division I offers. After high school, I got 0 offers. None. Got nothing. So I go to junior college. In junior college, I have to work. That's when I worked in the carrot fields over the summer. I worked at Home Depot in the morning, too, watering plants in the garden at 5 a.m. before school. Then I'd go to school, then I'd go to weightlifting, then I'd go to practice, then I'd go to night school. And my first season there, I broke my collarbone. I had one season to try to make an impact on playing against a guy named Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was the #1 quarterback in the country, went to a college called Reedley Junior College. He ended up going to Texas Tech. So all these scouts from Texas come to watch him. I'm on the other team, on the other side of the ball. I have a great game against them, so I get recruited to come to SMU. And it was only through him. At that stage in my life, my mom was a school bus driver. School bus drivers don't make a lot, in case you're wondering. And then my dad was unemployed, unfortunately. Not a normal circumstance for the family, but that was the circumstances that we were in at that time. So I got an older sister, I got a younger sister, I got 2 loving parents. And they say, Jerad, I know you have this great offer at SMU, but we can't go with you. So we packed up my truck together and I drove to Texas by myself. Manual transmission, Toyota Tacoma, manual windows, manual locks. Got my whole life packed in the back of my truck. I'm trying to be a man, but I have to admit, as I'm going across the different states, Arizona, New Mexico, I got tears in my eyes. I'm scared to death. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing. 20 years old, I have no friends here, don't even know where I'm coming. I get to the stadium finally, I finally get here, and I told Coach Bennett, I said, Coach, I got to get this stuff out of my truck, because if I don't take it out and someone steals it, that's everything I own. He put his arm around me, showing his gift of fire with a little warmth. And he said, Jerad, you can leave your stuff in your truck all semester long. Nobody at SMU wants any of your stuff. He said, it's fine, you can keep it there. I start realizing quickly I'm in a different world. I'm in another place. I get out to my first day of practice. They told me I could be the starter, and I'm 5th string. 5th string. I'm like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you don't go from 5th string to starter. I call my parents. I say, I want to quit. I'm out of here. They say, you can't do that. The same thing that work in Tehachapi, California, will work in Dallas, Texas. Stay the course. So reluctantly I did, because my parents weren't going to allow me to do anything different. I stayed the course. In just 2 seasons at SMU, I become the starter and the captain and the MVP of the team by my senior year when they're giving out the awards. I tell you that because I really believe this, that performance is your ticket to admission to everything you want in life. If I was not the starter, captain, and MVP, they don't invite me to dining with decision makers because they don't want to hear from me, because I'm not the best. But when you are the best, they want to hear from you, so they invited me that night because of that reason. So I'm there, and my wife was my date. I go to talk to her after the event. I just told that story to the Board of Trustees. And when I go talk to her, Mr. Sewell was standing right next to her. He had happened to sit with her the entire meal. And his wife was right next to him. And I was up at the head table the whole meal. And he said, Jerad, that story of perseverance, overcoming obstacles, doing things people aren't willing to do, he said, you will be very successful in your life. I really didn't believe it at the time, because that night I had to have my roommate's dad tie my tie, because I didn't know how. And I borrowed my roommate's dad's suit, so I'm sure that it fit really well. Right? And because I didn't know, I was very, very uncomfortable. But he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And I put myself into a very uncomfortable environment, pushing myself outside of my comfort zone for something maybe to happen that I didn't even know could happen. Then he looks at my wife. He says, she's talented and driven and attractive. I mean, intelligent. I mean, she's going to be unbelievable. Then he looked back at me. He said, sir, I got to tell you something. He said, if you're with her, you must be one heck of a salesman. I said, well, I guess I appreciate that. I guess I don't really know. And Mr. Sewell offered me a job that night at an event I didn't even want to go to, with an industry, the automotive business, that I never even knew about and would have never thought I would join. But you have to have someone who cares about you directly, someone who will impact your life in a way that you could never imagine. 10.5 years later, as I moved to my career, I feel like I owe it to Mr. Sewell every day to give my best. Because he got me at a time when I owed more money than I had. When I finally joined the team, I was at a football camp. I was out of work. I didn't have a job. I played arena football for a year after college. And arena football pays $200, $250 if you win, minus taxes, and you only play 1 game a week. And then $200 minus taxes if you lose. So here I was with a college degree. I'm waiting tables at the macaroni grill, trying to make ends meet 1 year after college. Then I'm on the field at the SMU football camp, my coach said, I'll pay you $400 in breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you coach this camp. I was so desperate to try to make some money, I said, I need that. I need the $400 and I need the meals. The second day of practice, Mr. Sewell called me, which I don't even know how he got my cell phone, but he called me, not anyone else in the business. He said, Jerad, I heard you're back in town. Is that correct? I said, yes. He said, I heard you were looking for work. Is that correct? I said, yes. He said, Jerad, I told you 1 year ago at that dinner that I wanted you to work here. When I say something like that, I mean it. So I'd like you to go through the interview process with the Lexus store, and if everything works out with the testing and the background and all the stuff, we'd like you to join. That's how I joined. Mr. Sewell helped me out when I had nothing. I hadn't proven a thing. I don't even know what he saw in me that I didn't see in myself. But he helped me. So I want you to think about that as you move forward. Think about these three things when you're looking for an organization. You find a company that shares your values. You know who you are right now. You know what makes you feel special. You're probably not going to change much in regards to your values at this stage of your life. Find a company that already exists that matches that. Don't try to match yourself to the company. Match the company to you, because you are who you are. Find a company that shares your values. Find a company with a history of winning. A lot of times companies who have won for a long time have the infrastructure that will allow you to be successful. They have the people and the systems who have been there, who have blazed the trails, who can help you. And then the last thing, you need to find your first mentor. And it needs to be within the organization. Find a significant individual who already works there, who cares about you directly. When you find all of those three things at any company, you will be successful. If one of those things are missing, I would encourage you not to join that company. I really believe strongly that if all these things exist, come on board. If you said you wanted to join Sewell, but one of those things were missing, I would tell you this isn't the right place. So I really believe in that. I really believe in that strongly. But we're so happy that you're here. We're so happy to host you. I'm going to read one chapter, one little page from Mr. Sewell's book, and then I'll wrap up and answer any questions that you may have. But it's right here. It's chapter 23, and it's called You Can't Fake It. Mr. Sewell wrote about this. I'll just read this one page. Okay? It says, I hate using the word I when talking about our business because everything we do really is a team effort. But in each organization, a leader must step forward. He must make the company successful. He's got to provide jobs, ensure that the company turns a profit, and create a place where people are proud to work. If he doesn't do those things, no one will follow him. In the final analysis, the authority of a manager comes from the managed. As Peter Drucker says, leadership is performance. If you're the boss, you can't fake it. You either believe in the goals you set or you don't. And if you don't, you're going to get found out. First, it takes too much effort to pretend. Second, employees watch their leaders too closely for them to be able to fake anything. Once people catch you not caring about a goal you set, you said we always have to treat customers honestly. And they watch while you deliberately shortchange someone. It's all over. They'll stop caring because they see that you don't. Once that happens, all the banners and pep rallies in the world aren't going to change things. You'll never achieve your goal. Even when people know what they are supposed to do, sometimes they forget. That's why they hold church every Sunday. It's also why, through both word and deed, have to constantly remind people what their values are. So I want you to think about that as you go through and you think about how good you want to be. Think about you being a leader, because we all have the capability to do that. But knowing here that when you do become a leader, the people who are watching you, they've been equipped with a set of binoculars watching every move. And your voice has now been provided a megaphone where they can hear everything that you say. And oftentimes when you're a leader, they're waiting for you to mess up. Because they're going to say, I knew there was a flaw in that system somewhere. They can't live this way every day. But as you prove to them over and over, day by day, that you can build something bigger than yourself. So I appreciate your time today. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Hopefully this was a valuable day, and thank you so much.